another event in San Francisco in the spring. It's not on this slide, where events that we were doing just on the side, and it's now become it's a community, many of you are members, and really for the next event season, which we've now, you're at the last event that will ever be in June, and it's a challenge, so we're going to do events mid-September to mid-November, February, March, and April. But really what we're focusing on for the next 6 months is building up our technology test bed, and that is lawyers and companies that are interested in using technology, and not just big law, but across the board, and then smaller companies, to try to foster more innovation and getting people to work together and actually use some of the solutions that people have come up with. So, oops. I've gone too far. So our surprise guests are from Shape the Law, and so I am going to let Alex come up here and Gina, and they're going to do a little surprise. So this is our new thing. We used to only do Darwin Talks and have people talk at the end. Now we're going to do it at the beginning.
Hi everyone, we're so excited to be here. I'm Alex Devendra, and I'm here with one of my co-founders, Gina Cho, and we're going to tell you a little bit about Shape the Law. I think it's safe to say, I've talked to enough of you over the past few happy hour, that we all care about the future of the law, and we want to be, making positive change. And, we're all well aware of the multiple challenges facing the legal industry, and we want to be part of the solution. Even so, it can sometimes be challenging. Sometimes we feel like the pace of change is not what we would like it to be. And some of the problems are so multifaceted that it can be hard to know where to even start. And if that's the case for us who've dedicated our lives to affecting positive change, imagine what it's like to be an attorney in a traditional practice setting. The thought of having to face these challenges and come up with solutions can be really daunting. And a lot of times it's easier just to focus on the urgent client work and ignore the important work of shaping the future of the profession. And that's where Shape the Law comes in. We're dedicated to creating supportive environments so that attorneys can grapple with these issues and really engage with each other in an honest and authentic way. So how do we do that? We have a special sauce that we use that makes our events different from your typical conference. It's part mindfulness, part design thinking, mixed with a mindset of radical inclusivity. Our foundational event is an unconference, and if you're not familiar with the term, an unconference is an event where there is no pre-planned agenda, there are no speakers that are designated to talk. Instead, it's about creating a space and giving the participants permission to really talk to each other and engage in discussion about the issues that they think are important. So we had our inaugural unconference here in San Francisco this past April. And it was a huge success, we have to say. There was so much positive feedback. You can talk to Alicia if you want a testimonial. And so we've been ramping up since then, and we have 6 more dates on the calendar. We're going to be in Chicago in September, and then New York in October, Boston in November, Atlanta in December, back in San Francisco in January, and then LA in February. I'm thinking in future years we might want to rethink that schedule, but hopefully we'll have enough success to keep going. And the great thing is that in each city we have opportunities for both law firms and companies, legal tech companies, to sponsor the event. And one of the great benefits of sponsorship is that it gives you the chance to engage with the attendees at the event and really talk to them about the value proposition of your firm, or educate them on your product and how your company is addressing the challenges of the industry. So with that said, I wanted to turn it over to Gina to do a quick mindfulness practice with us that will just give you a little bit of a flavor of what makes Shape the Law events so unique. But before I do that, I just have to give a shout out to Gina. Her book, The Anxious Lawyer, was just released by ABA Publishing, and it's available for $29 back there as well. And if you're interested in possibly sponsoring, we also have flyers with some sponsorship information. So grab one of us if you'd like to talk about it. Now to you. All right, so I'm curious, how many of you can use a little less stress in your life? Come on, don't be shy. Anyone like, I'm good, like my stress level is just great. All right, so I want to actually share a 2-minute exercise with you that you can all do. And there's lots of studies that actually suggest all you need is 2 minutes to cultivate calm and ease and all of these benefits that we now know comes from mindfulness and meditation. Anyone have never heard of the term mindfulness and meditation? All right, awesome. So it sounds like most of you are probably familiar with it. So I'm going to actually set my timer for 2 minutes. I use an app called Insight Timer. I'm going to go through a 2-minute guided meditation exercise with you if I don't fall off this stool first. All right, so I'm setting my timer. And so basically what you want to do, and this is like the most awful chair for me to demonstrate this, but basically you want to put both feet on the floor. So put both feet firmly on the ground. And just kind of check your posture. So you want to check your head, your neck, your shoulders, your spine. Just sit in a way that feels comfortable to you. And allow your eyes to close. And when you close your eyes, it's a very different experience than having your eyes open. Just taking a moment to notice. You may notice that your hearing becomes heightened, so you may notice different sounds that you didn't notice before. Just allowing all the different sounds and the experience to be exactly the way it is. Not needing to change anything. And now let's just gently turn the attention to the breath. So not changing how you're breathing, but just gently turning your attention to the sensation of breathing. Breathing in and release. Breathing in and releasing. And do that one more time, breathing in and releasing. And now begin to wiggle your fingers and toes and move your body in any way that feels good to you. You can stretch your arms, stretch your legs, stretch your spine, and whenever you feel ready, you can open your eyes. So, 21 days, 2 minutes a day, and just see what happens. So, thank you.
David, who you will see from Fundbox. We also have Felicia from Factbox here, so we gotta get this right. So David from Fundbox and Monica from Foxworthy. And they both sponsored the event, and we're very excited that they're both gonna be speaking. So let's get started with our panel first. So if they could come up here, we've got Monica, who is, you can just come on up, and Alan's gonna sit with me, not because I need to keep an eye on him, but because he has a couple of slides. But Monica is CEO of Foxworthy is just the beginning. Oops. There's chairs, sorry. Maybe I'm just gonna stand by my chair. And so she's an investor, she's a businesswoman, she runs Foxworthy, she founded Zen Law, she's very accomplished, and interesting is that she was in the Army and she's run 20 marathons. And we ask everybody who their favorite lawyer is. And her favorite lawyer is Sandra Day O'Connor, which is the name of the law school where I went to law school. So welcome to Monica. And then we have Alan next, who's the co-founder of 1-400, and he's a marketing strategist and a product guy, and clearly doesn't want to trip on that. And he worked for LegalZoom, and you and Eva founded 1-400, how many years ago?
3 years.
3 years ago. And his favorite lawyer is Saul Goodman, and we can't be friends anymore because you don't like chocolate, so that's his unusual fact. So, Becky Roth.
Everybody likes chocolate.
Everybody. So Becky Roth is marketing manager at Rocket Lawyer, and she's a social media and communication researcher turned tech-obsessed online legal marketer. So that's very interesting. And a lover of funny-looking animals. I don't know if that will come up tonight. So she loves to quilt, and she never sewed a thing until she was 25, which is really, that's surprising. And her favorite lawyers are Hillary Clinton and Michelle Obama, ladies with law degrees. And last but not least, Larisha, and I've probably pronounced it incorrectly, I'm so sorry, from Davis Wright Tremaine. And Davis Wright Tremaine is our founding law firm member of Evolve Law. And Larisha, she has flown from DC, and she's a social media manager at DWT. And she's probably got some really good stories because she wrote communications, specifically Twitter, for government officials, which I think included senators? Ambassadors. And produced documentaries, which she continues to do in her free time. Her favorite lawyer is her mom, which is really cool, and her mom does pro bono work for special needs families, so that's really interesting. And then she used to be in a traveling theater troupe, so maybe there can be some interesting stuff afterwards. So we are going to dive into social media and the law, and a little bit about innovation. And I'm going to sit down in this chair and pretend not to fall over. So we'll just share the mic back and forth over there now. We can drag it for me. So everyone knows what social media is, but how do you use social media in your day-to-day work? I can start since
Yes.
I got the mic and then
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, social media is essential. It's part of life. I see now in my life. I feel that anybody in business, and they could be in law and sales, whatever profession you're in. I mean, social media could be part of your life, and it probably should be. I use it primarily as a relationship tool, but I also use it for social selling. We can talk about that in a little while, as well as outreach. So there's a lot of different uses. Obviously, all the platforms have different strengths, and there are different types of content or ways that you engage with others on these platforms. And so that'll come out, I think, more in all of our collective discussions. But I use it every day. I use it every day for outreach, relationship building, reaching the community, publishing, engaging with colleagues, even giving love, really. I mean, sharing, things with other people, or, giving them sort of a like or retweet. It's sort of like a virtual high five. It's a virtual pat on the back. And it's a great way just to, again, build relationships, but also share that love and spread support around the community.
Absolutely. So I think that the top way for me, I also use social media as a relationship building tool. So it takes what we would generally consider as marketers a mass audience and personalizes everyone and allows us to have those one-on-one conversations, understand what people are going through, hear their stories, as well as share stories that are going to resonate them. So we have everything as far as relationship building to helping them understand not only the products, but what their pain points are around the law, what they don't understand that's happening, what they don't understand, how the law affects their everyday life, and giving them the information and the tools that they need to solve those problems however that is best for them. So there's everything from LinkedIn, which is a very personal relationship, Facebook, which becomes more personal, Twitter, and everything we do and outreaching there. And then, of course, being from a B2C company, customer service is a huge part of what we do through social as well.
Yeah, so I'm unique because I'm with a law firm, and obviously law firms aren't known for their social media, but we use it as a branding tool and as a way to connect with clients in an interesting manner. So we've noticed that our social media platforms are more widely seen than our website. So like in our past quarter, we had over 100,000 views just on our Twitter page, and it was not the same on our DWT.com. So it's been an interesting ride.
Alan, did you have anything you wanted to add?
No, just like the others had said, for us it's brand promotion. One thing that wasn't mentioned was reputation management, right? So I think maybe you were alluding to it when you talked about customer service. So you want to, or at least one of the things that we use social media for, is to kind of listen to what people are potentially saying about us, right? Both good and bad, you know, and then having a conversation with those people, or at least leading the dialogue that's going to happen with you online.
Okay, so there's been a couple of things in the news lately about some improper uses of Twitter, and we'll get to that in a minute. But what are the legal, ethical challenges? And I think Becky is going to start this one.
Yeah, so as far as social media and legal challenges, we walk a really fine line all the time where we are a company that is helping people find legal services, but we're not attorneys, we're not a law firm, and so we have to be very careful in distinguishing what we give people as legal information and not legal advice. And I think that's something that any attorney who is leveraging social media as far as personal relationships and their own brand and setting themselves apart as experts, and setting expectations that you're not creating an attorney-client relationship, that it is purely informational, and where you cross that line into becoming more of an actual client is something to take into consideration and make sure that you've got that negotiated properly.
I can speak it from a law firm's perspective. Everyone is always fearful of offending a client because that affects business. So it's always, making sure your content is neutral and to give client shout outs. People really like that because then you're showing to your client that you care about their business and you're promoting them from that realm. The other thing people worry about our attorneys do is they want to seem intelligent, and they used to think that social media is for posting your food. And it could be, like if you're a food and media attorney, you should be posting your food. So we really have been working with them. It's a branding tool, and to not be scared of it, because I think a lot in the legal world you're used to saying no because there's so many regulations, but really social media is a way to kind of expand yourself and your brand.
I was just going to say, of course, lawyers, just need to be mindful of privilege, and I think lawyers in general have really great filters, and they filter automatically what they say at a cocktail party or something like that, so I don't think the behaviors should change, on social media. That being said, I do think there are a number of folks in the legal industry that run afoul of that, and they probably get into trouble, and we'll probably talk later about some of the kind of ideal ways to use social media, but I don't have anything else in that one.
I was just going to add, don't do anything online that you couldn't do offline as a lawyer, right? So solicitation rules still apply. Just like you wouldn't witness somebody having an accident and going up to them and say, I can help you with that, right? And hand them your card. If somebody posts about an accident, like online, you don't want to say, I can help you with that, right? One of the other things too, Becky, you had mentioned this about I guess you were talking about the unauthorized practice of law, giving out legal advice when you're not a lawyer. Well, for lawyers who have a large Twitter following, for instance, somebody can ask you a legal question, and even if you feel confident you're able to answer, you have to first validate where that person is, where the jurisdiction for the question may lie. So you could still commit UPL, the unauthorized practice of law, by answering that question, should that person be in a different jurisdiction, and you haven't, found out, right? So that's the thing about Twitter. You have a short amount of description, so short of going to their profile and then self-indicating where they're located, it's very hard to do. So don't answer any questions, legal questions online. That's my advice. I think I actually have a slide on that.
Yes.
Yeah. So I'll just kind of leave that up, but a lot of the stuff that we've all said.
Right. So just in the last 2 days, I had one of the guys who is involved with the ABA publication that's now for students sent me a series of tweets that there was a very unfortunate incident in Florida around Disneyland that you might have heard about with a small boy, and somebody sent out a tweet, and it was, I'm not even going to repeat it, it's just vile what this person said, and it turned out that they were able to find out who the actual person was who had sent out this tweet, and this person is a lawyer. And they were able to find her firm, and so she's been, I had to look this up, doxxed, D-O-X-X-E-D, which means she was outed for saying it, and then just yesterday, I think it was, the Florida Assistant State Attorney was suspended for controversial Facebook posts on the attack at the Orlando nightclub. So let's dive into talking a little bit about what mistakes you see lawyers making, and then comment on how you think we should all use, like we've got, you know, personally I have a Facebook account, I have a Twitter, I have 2 Twitters, actually 3, and then I have LinkedIn. So what are people's thoughts on how lawyers or just anyone in business should try to keep all of this separate? Obviously you shouldn't say vile things and try to hide behind a clever Game of Thrones type Twitter handle, which is what this person did. So I don't know if you want to start over there. Or...
Yeah, sure, I'll start. Yeah, I mean, I guess the first thing is, I mean, and I'm sure you're all social media users, maybe show of hands. Everybody uses social media every day here? Probably almost? Okay. So, yeah, in general, I mean, first of all, I would say be a good corporate citizen. You know, just kind of Alan's point. You know, don't post anything that your grandmother would be embarrassed to read, probably, in social media. I'm appalled at some of the posts by lawyers. I think there's a lot to learn still in the legal industry. People sort of behave in a way that you know, is crude or rude or vile, and there's no need for that. So I would say that the first thing is kind of always remembering that if it's not already part of, you know, who you are as a person. And then of course, keeping in mind the different platforms have strengths, and so my strategy is typically looking at the different audiences on those platforms and sharing what's relevant. I think the key thing to remember with social media, it's always been an important principle for me, is authenticity. Now, authenticity ultimately should be the guiding principle on social media, and that is really what you get the most out of. You build strong relationships with that, people can see who you are, and using the different platforms for the purpose they're made for is helpful. I mean, Twitter is kind of for discussions and conversations and quick sound bites. You know, you've got Snapchat, which is highly visual, and so you can kind of have more fun with that. Maybe be a little bit more casual, but still appropriate. Facebook, of course, is a lot more personal, but it's also, I mean, it allows some of that authenticity to come through, that you have a real person in your real life, and of course, LinkedIn and so forth, we know is very professional. So, you know, there's just taking advantage of the different platforms and strengths and kind of keeping to what's appropriate to that audience is really helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. That's exactly where my mind goes to it, is marketing 101, know your audience. If you're on Facebook and you want to have a personal Facebook account with your spouse and your partner and your kids, keep that private, and keep the private and your personal and divide that from your professional life. And I think that is something that as younger generations are starting to grow up and understand, but it hasn't always resonated with everyone yet, and especially with various audiences, and understanding how to balance that line of authenticity and being a real person while not oversharing and not bringing too much of your personal life. You don't have to share the food pictures and the pictures of the kids unless you want to, and that's something that you're comfortable with. But I think when we see things that are inappropriate being posted by attorneys or aren't necessarily in the best interest of everyone, it's not understanding the platform, not understanding privacy settings, not understanding that what you put out there is going to stay out there, and you can't retract that. It's out there forever. And so if it's Facebook, keeping your privacy settings on, there's a big difference between having a personal profile and having a page for your business and having a professional presence there. LinkedIn, of course, is very public and very professional. Twitter, if you're using it in a professional manner, use it in a professional manner. But it's going to vary for everyone, so knowing your audience, what messages you're putting to that audience, and what your privacy settings are, I think is something everyone should keep in mind.
From an organizational standpoint, if you're going to have a post that is for Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn, I think it's best practice to have different copy for each of them. Otherwise, it just looks like you're kind of lazy and not really authentic. They're like, I'm just going to copy and paste all of this in. Because it's different audiences and what it's used for is different. So it's one thing. And then I have an anecdote that happened to Davis Wright 2 weeks ago. So we are known for First Amendment law, and we helped the Washington Post release all the documents from Trump University. So it's a huge win from First Amendment, but then you're dealing with, okay, we can't show strikes politically. So how do we, even though it's not a political issue, people may take it as a political issue, so how do we write copy for this? And it really was just stating the fact of, we helped the Washington Post release documents for Trump University, so you can't really say if we're for Trump or for Hillary, because we focus on what we won for, which was First Amendment of getting documents released. And so that, it was It was iffy, and yeah, people are going to say things, but I will say it was excellent press. It was probably our top post for the year for all of us.
Don't be an a-hole. I kind of feel, I think what you said, like, you know, for some people, the internet has created this sense of anonymity, right? Like, and it's just false. So, like, you put it out there, you'll get doxxed. I didn't know that term, by the way, until you had read that off.
Until I
Yeah.
emailed.
The point is, like, I guess for myself, I'll tell you what my filter is. If I couldn't say it to somebody in front of their face, then I would just never say it online. There's just no difference. I'm literally using social media to have a conversation with people that I know in some capacity. And so that's all I'm going to say about that.
Yeah, I mean, years and years and years ago, I had media training before there was social media, but it's social media, so it's still media, and I think the same rules apply. And we were always told, whatever you do in your day-to-day life, so that includes like whatever you put, even if you've got your privacy settings. I always like to tell my kids, my daughter is always Snapchatting everything I'm doing. Like, I never know, all of a sudden there's this whoosh noise, and it's like, come on, like, stop doing that. She's like, but Mom, it just disappears. I'm like, no, it doesn't. So you just always assume that it's always going to be out there. So never do anything you're doing in business that you wouldn't want splashed on the front page. It's showing my age. On the front page of the newspaper, but it's the same thing. You don't want it on Facebook. So I've started so many posts, particularly when I'm traveling and other people are super annoying or there's airplane delays, and then I'm like, maybe I shouldn't put that out there. But I can tell you that sometimes if you tweet about it, they'll send you credits. I won't mention the airline, but it does work as long as it's valid. So the legal industry likes to think of itself as different. And so what are people's thoughts on, is it different for lawyers in terms of social media? And what do you say to lawyers who are like, well, I don't need a website. I don't need these social media accounts. I don't need a LinkedIn account.
Sure. So I'll answer the website question first. There's two types of businesses today, those that are online and those that will be, right? Like, period. So a website is absolutely necessary. With regards to social media, you know, I think, you know, this is really kind of the new frontier where you can engage with prospective clients in ways that you've not been able to before, right? Like, especially, and regardless if you're a B2B kind of company or a B2C company, there's a social media channel for you to be able to reach a potential new client. So historically, law firms had advertised their services a number of ways. Largely, they've built kind of word-of-mouth referral networks, and a lot of that was like on great legal work, but also attorneys sell themselves through subject matter expertise. And what better way to do that than to write great content and then post that on LinkedIn? And then on LinkedIn in particular, you can actually advertise, right? So you can go in and say if you're a firm like Littler Mendelsohn that does a lot of employment defense law, like your ideal target is HR directors, right? Or C-level executives at large enterprise type companies. So you could create a great white paper on the recent changes, you know, protections for a certain like class or group of workers, identify who those people are on LinkedIn, and then promote that content to that audience specifically. So now you're branding in front of those HR directors, you're branding in front of that ideal audience. And then through, you know, some way of like working the network, say you're 2 connections deep to some person, you can kind of, you know, get the brand impressions, capitalize on that, and reach out to somebody directly. So my point is, I didn't want to go into specific examples how to run an effective LinkedIn campaign, but you can find somebody that's ready to engage with your content through social media in ways that you've not been able to do through traditional forms of advertising.
Yeah, just to add, that was great, Alan. I mean, there's definitely so many reasons to obviously be on social media. And all of you, I want to keep this kind of relevant for the audience. I mean, since many of you are from tech companies that are targeting the legal industry, I mean, I think the thing to keep in mind here is that the law is kind of 10 years behind everybody else in the adoption of technology, and the fact that we're even having this conversation in 2016 is kind of silly. talking about lawyers, get on social media, whereas everybody else probably already was. So that's kind of the audience you're dealing with, that's the market you're dealing with, and I think it's important to keep that in mind. And so maybe that informs even some of your sales approach. Just being very hands-on, showing the demos. I will say social selling does really work in this space. If there's one platform that most lawyers are on, other than Foxworthy, it's LinkedIn. So they are a great place to find your targets there. And I've done a lot of successful selling through LinkedIn, just through cold outreach, making connections, meeting up with people. So I will say that that's definitely a great place to find them. And then, of course, tailoring your pitch in light of the fact that this is largely not always a tech-savvy audience that you're pitching to.
Monica, could you just answer, what do you do for your law firm? Because you have Foxworthy and your law firm. So.
Yeah, great. On the law firm side, absolutely, we've embraced social media and we're early adopters of it. I mean, really, it was very much to echo what you mentioned about, a branding tool for outreach, being seen as a thought leader, putting content out there, giving shout-outs to clients, all of that. So definitely using it mostly as an outreach tool. And also, I always say, go where your clients are, go where your customers are. And social media is where customers are. And if they're not there yet, they will be. So finding where they are in law, there's a lot of them, of course, on LinkedIn, a lot on Twitter still. And so it's really going where the customers are.
So I consider social media low-hanging fruit because it's free, so why wouldn't you use it? And it takes up relatively a small amount of time compared to writing a legal brief. So that's one reason. The other thing is, I could be a little biased because I'm a millennial. Millennial now, they're the largest workforce. And so the legal field has to come to terms with that. We may not come to terms with it until 10 years from now, but that's going to change the game with client relationships, which I think is important. And the other thing with LinkedIn is even as a law firm, we have gotten business from postings on LinkedIn. And we are starting to work with our attorneys one-on-one on what a good LinkedIn profile looks like.
And did you want to add anything about, do lawyers in Davis-Ray Tremaine come to you and say, why should I bother with Twitter? What do I even do? What do you say to them?
Yeah, I get a lot of that. Because some of it is time, right? And it's understandable. So my main push is, if you're at an event, and this is for anyone here, there's more than likely a hashtag, there's a hashtag for this event. And it is a great way to connect with people that you probably didn't have time with in a happy hour or afterwards if you have to go around and catch the BART. And so you can continue that conversation, and it's a great way for people to get client intake. So we use that for, I'm going to go back to your point, but I remember this. So you having a hashtag at your event or just your handle, you get client intake without having to ask for a survey. People, good or bad, will send their thoughts on social media, so it's a great way to get that. And then for attorneys, I really push LinkedIn because people love transparency, and especially inside counsel. So when they Google you, if you don't have a LinkedIn page or even a LinkedIn page with no photo, it's just why don't they have a photo? Are they up to terms with the times? So yeah, so Twitter for attorneys, at least when you're at events, it's a way to connect. And then for LinkedIn, it's like your web bio. It's not as important, but I would say second for branding yourself is definitely that.
And one thing about the LinkedIn profile picture is it should just be you. It shouldn't be you with half of your significant other person's shoulder or a pet, which seems to be a frightening trend. And apologies if anyone has one of those in the audience, but if you're trying to portray as an attorney or a business person that you're a professional, you should have a professional photo.
And not in a bikini.
Yeah.
Good trend right now.
Seriously? On LinkedIn?
Yes.
Oh, wow. I missed that trend. Lucky for
It's interesting that you point that out because, and I know we're talking about the photos now, but I've seen more glamour shots on LinkedIn. But what's interesting about the LinkedIn audience is that there's a lot of people pushing back. I've literally seen a couple of these in the last couple of months. It's pretty interesting. But people are writing hey, this isn't Facebook. This isn't Twitter. Let's keep it professional. And so that audience is determined, on this channel in particular, this is what we want to use it for. It's very interesting that you point that out.
Yeah, and I just noticed, what day is today? Tuesday? So Sunday was Father's Day. And people were posting things on LinkedIn with pictures of fathers and things, and I'm like, no, this is like the wrong channel. But I feel like on LinkedIn, I would not reach out and sort of say anything to anybody. I would just sort of not message them or anything, just a bit different. So let's just change gears a little bit and talk about, I think we had it up there before, kind of people worry about what's the return on investment. You know, particularly if you're a lawyer and you're like, okay, I've got 9 million different things to do, I should be billing, I should be working on client work, what is the return on investment in social media? So I think Alan was going to kick this off with a slide and then everyone else can jump in.
So we get asked this question a lot. Let me back up. So just using this as an example, what is the ROI on social media? Well, I think it depends on the practice, your business, all that sort of thing, a number of factors. But should you so desire to try to figure out the ROI of a Facebook like, there's actually a formula for it. Here we use an example of a small law practice where the average conversion value of a retained client is worth $3,000. You take the total number of likes, the unlikes per month, average clicks, website conversion rate, which is all data that you should be getting from your analytics platform on your website. And then the total value, conversion value, likes per day. And then you run it through this not so complex math, but it looks kind of scary. And you get an average value of Facebook like. That's really an awful way of doing it. So I really don't recommend it. Like, we certainly don't do it. The better way is just to make sure that you have sound analytics on your website. If you're generating leads or business through your website, like say through contact forms or even phone calls, right? So have a tracking number and setting up conversion goals and analytics, then you're able to more quickly identify what the actual value is. So here's an example of an actual client of ours. They get about approximately 6,000 unique sessions a month. And then because we've got analytics set up correctly, we can tell the total number of conversions, or in our case leads, and we determine a lead value that were contributed by social media, and then by each channel that contributed to that too. So in this case, about 17% of all conversions were contributed by social media channels. I blocked out the values, out of respect for our clients' data, but in this case, they are higher dollar amounts for initial retainers for this particular firm. So social media is a significant portion, or at least you can't ignore it, for sure, a portion of their business. So.
Yeah, so I'll do a software trade investment. If you guys are in the legal tech field, it's important to know about law firms. They adore numbers. So anytime you meet with them, numbers, and the numbers that are pretty, because they are skimming, because they're getting so many emails that they're just skimming through. So if you formulate it that it looks good on a document with numbers, you're good. So anytime we do an event at Davis Wright Tremaine, we have a hashtag, and then I work with our design team, and I work, we either Hootsuite or Keyhole or Twitter Analytics, getting all the numbers, and then putting that into a one-page document and sending it to them, and then they send it around to stakeholders, and it keeps either the event going, or they have a holistic view of what the conference is like, what people are talking about, and if we have a really high client that is retweeting us or mentioning us, it just provides more of a holistic view of a person as a whole, especially attorneys. Attorneys are mostly, I don't know, attorneys get a bad rap, unfortunately. But this is where I think social media can kind of show the human side of them. So I'm not a hard R person, so that's the soft one.
Oh, I can even go. So there's everything with brand equity, but I think that when it comes to all these discussions, it's important not to overlook the value of SEO. So as your brand equity goes and people are familiar with who you are and what you do, and you establish credibility in that realm, you're going to see a lot of organic traffic go up. And as more people come to your site through organic, or they're reaching out, I know we see this a lot with our general counsel. So going back a little bit to the previous question, everybody is looking at reviews online. We don't buy anything from Amazon. You can stand in Target, and most people will pull out their phone and start looking for reviews before they actually check something out. So if you're going to be somebody's attorney and you know for a fact that they're Googling you, and that means that they're going to be coming in from a lot of different directions, what those reviews is worth to you, and what those testimonials and all of that word of mouth comes out to, can turn out to be invaluable. And I know our GC being a team of one in-house counsel, most of what we do when it comes to finding somebody else to help out for niche things, or if we need an expert in a particular field, it's a matter of going to LinkedIn, checking out their blog, seeing what they're experts in. So all of that can have huge returns that aren't necessarily tied back directly to SEM spend or the cost of what a particular post is going to be, but have much, much larger implications.
Yeah, just to add to that, I mean, a lot of great points. Just to get even softer, it really has to do with relationships. The legal industry is obviously very much about relationships, and social media is an excellent relationship builder tool. I mean, in terms of solidifying relationships, strengthening those, building those, nurturing the relationships, cultivating new relationships. It's just an excellent tool, and those can be significant gains that are hard to quantify.
You know, I want to add one last thing. I start talking about the numbers and you start talking about these other values that are really valuable. One of the things too, as legal tech companies or even a law firm, recruiting, right? It's an ongoing challenge for every business owner, finding the right team, the right talent. And social media offers you an opportunity to show your culture, right? This is what it's like working for this company. This is what it's like. We're gonna pull the veil back and give you a little insight into our culture and inspire people to maybe want to reach out to you proactively. So there's a lot of value in that as well.
I always like the numbers, but I have to defer to all of you. Do you have any specific examples of wins or big losses on social media? And then we'll open it up to some questions. If we can just go through the group.
Okay. Yeah, let's see. I would definitely cite sort of social selling as a big win. You know, concepts where relationships have started cold and turned into real client relationships. So I've definitely built those. You know, when wearing the law firm hat, as well as with customer development. So definitely some big wins there that have been real and have started and initiated with a cold contact or a cold contact through, oh, I know that you know so-and-so, I'd love to meet with you, or we have so-and-so in common. So that definitely works. And then in terms of misses or losses, you know, I don't know, I mean, lost opportunities can come up. I think you raised a great point, Alan, about the listening context. I think listening is really great. You know, social media does give us that ability to have this, you know, extra ears sort of out there listening. And, you know, engaging right away. If somebody has any feedback, that can always be helpful. And it's hard to navigate that sometimes, you know, what's the right level of touch in those scenarios. But yeah, I wouldn't say it's really lost, but it's just sort of it's a skill that I think every company sort of has to navigate what their culture is comfortable with and what's appropriate, what's the right level of touch when dealing with any feedback as well, constructive feedback.
Yeah, so that's really interesting, and I bet that this changes a lot based on the size of the company, because we're certainly large enough as a company that we have a department specialized towards SEM and paid posts and driving conversions. So absolutely a huge win for us is actual conversion driving through social media and Facebook posts and Twitter and LinkedIn and Pinterest and all of those channels. And then we also have the side of it that's purely community-based. So finding people who are passionate about the law, excited about these events, our attorney on-call network, who are attorneys trying to figure out how do I take my small law firm, I just graduated from law school, I'm on my own, the playing field firm, and working my way up. So fostering all of those communities is certainly a huge win that we have. And then from the marketing standpoint, the voice of the customer element is completely invaluable to be able to listen into conversations both around our brand as well as general topics that are happening. So if we know that people are talking about their divorces or they're talking about estate planning and even tweeting things about going home around the holidays and mom and dad are getting older, we don't know how to have these conversations. Those are all the type of things that as a brand we can help facilitate, and we can provide the information that people need, and we can really align our message with what people want to hear. So that's huge both if you are small and doing personal branding in a law firm, all the way to the larger companies that really have more of an established social media department.
I have two specific examples. One is creating relationships with the press, and the other one is trending in a city. So the first one, creating relationships with the press, we have a dozen blogs, and we use them heavily with social media. And so when we post a blog, we get like Wall Street Journal, basically journalists are just on Twitter with the hashtag just trying to find people to get a quote from. And so they contacted us over something with our payment law advisor. Another time we launched DWT Project W, which I think you spoke on that panel, right? Project W? Or no, the web, DWT Web.
Web,
Yes. So we had this new initiative at Davis Wright, and we didn't put anything online yet, but we had a hashtag for it, and it got picked up a ton. And eventually, Gawker, someone wrote for that, and so it's just really easy. You're just repurposing content, and so that's a win for us. And the second thing is trending in a city. So we had an event in Portland last month, and we did not do any promoted posts. But if you know how to create copy, and it's really important to get images or just find ways to get the conversation literally going. We were one of the hashtags in Portland when you go on Twitter on the side, and it was our event. So anyone in Portland, even if they're not in law or food, they saw that, and that was free. That's all we had to do was just do some posts and a hashtag.
Coming from the perspective of marketing and advertising agency, it's kind of like what Becky said, right? So it's being able to identify the perfect audience very quickly. So in all of business, whether a law firm or a legal tech company, you're producing a solution to some pain, right? Like you're fixing a pain point. And people are very vocal about their pain points online, right? Like on social media. So if you're a plaintiff's firm looking to sue a certain financial institution, all you have to do is do a search on Twitter, name of financial institution plus your expletive of choice. You'll get a long list of potential plaintiffs, potentially, right, to generate ads to, that sort of thing. So it's really allowed us to kind of help our clients zero in on the specific people that they're trying to reach. I think that's the big one. The shortcoming, or at least the negative, I can't think of one just yet, but it's probably getting the messaging wrong and having some backlash, right? Someone releasing some information before it's the thought is complete, that sort of thing.
Hasn't happened to us yet. Did you want that recorded? Okay, so we're going to take some questions. If anybody has any questions on anything to do with social media or innovation of the panel.
Yeah, so let's say listening to you guys, you're convinced, but you haven't been on social media yet. What you're describing is when you're already there, when you already, let's say on Twitter, have followers, but how do you go from zero? Because let's say Twitter will suggest, like, do you like to follow the Warriors? Like, it's not thinking long, because it's such a small segment. And each network has its own rules and kind of nuanced rules that you get to know over a year or two. But if you're like listening to you guys and you're like, now, oh my God, I wish I did this 2 years ago, gotta get on it, gotta get followers, gotta make it happen. How do you get from zero to impact?
Yeah, I think so. Actually, the example I gave about trending is with our handle that we've only had for a year long. So there's pre-planning for who do you want to follow, and you're following people that are already thought leaders in the industry. So if they follow you, some people may, be like, oh, they follow that person, I'm going to do that too. And I just really think I'm biased because I'm speaking from an organizational standpoint of being really organic, because I think that is helpful. The whole buying followers thing, and I really think if you get as much out of it as what you put into it. So that's another big thing. I think starting off, if you're going from ground zero, I'm going to go back to events. If you're at events, you tweet, you'll get followers. You'll put multiple tweets if you're probably at an event. So that's my thought process.
Yeah, sure, I'll go. Okay. So to echo that, don't buy followers. Rule number one from any social media person, don't buy followers. I absolutely agree, start small. Pick one network, especially if you're a small law firm or you are in the tech space. I would personally go with Twitter. That would be my blanket social media of choice. I think LinkedIn is also really good from a professional standpoint. When I start hearing about all of the startups and small law firms who are playing around with Instagram and trying to figure out how to crack the code of Snapchat and how do we use Periscope, that's great, but that's not where you're going to make impact. Let somebody else figure out the formula for it. I would start really small, start really focused. Start with Twitter, make sure you have your profile filled out, have LinkedIn, do a complete profile, have that picture, have all the information you want in there, and then start reaching out to people that you know, going to those events, reaching out to people that you have face-to-face relationship with, and then inserting yourself in the conversations. So you'll see a lot of people with hashtags on Wednesdays or doing Twitter chats and all following the same hashtag. That's a perfect thing to chime in on and start just getting a feel for it, and it's a lot like a cocktail party. Sound very social media stereotypical here, but you don't have to go out and make besties with everyone. You can start really small, chime in here and there where you feel comfortable. Start with topics you feel comfortable with, and then expand it from there once you start to get the feel for what resonates with people and what doesn't.
Yeah, exactly. And then also, I definitely agree with just starting with a few platforms. Twitter and LinkedIn are great to start with. And I would say sort of 3 guiding principles. Authenticity, consistency is really important, and then strategy. So I would really think about strategy. You know, there's sort of a calculation around, you know, what does your brand represent? What do you expect it to represent? And kind of staying on topic, you know, and staying, I think that's really where I've noticed brands maybe can run afoul, especially new ones that are just getting on social media. So kind of figuring out that brand identity. If you're an individual, then what's your individual brand? What do you stand for as an individual? What are you comfortable sort of talking about? And maybe it's sports, maybe it's the environment, and maybe it's, you know, professional women or something. But, you know, just figure out what that strategy is, and then that should be the lens through which you post and share content, and then definitely, you know, engaging with other people. I mean, it is about engagement, so it's not just a one-way street, but also giving back. So engagement is a great way to kind of get the conversation going, and also have people recognize what you're talking about, you know, and so it's very easy to do. It doesn't take a lot of time, and it's, again, free, so take advantage.
Yeah, I would, you know, you called it strategy. I would describe it as finding your voice, right? Like, so what is, you know, what could I be a resource for? So a hobby of mine is mountaineering. I like backpacking, mountaineering. And I started an Instagram channel, and I only put pictures of like backpacking, mountaineering pictures, only. And that has way more followers than my professional profile for sure. But that's the only thing I use there. I don't put pictures of my kids. I don't kind of dilute the messaging on that one channel. And that seems to work. And I see a lot of that happening like on Instagram, Pinterest, things like that. People curate, I guess, certain information, and then they become recognized for being a resource for that information. And I tend to find that people that do that tend to grow their audiences more quickly than a more diluted, you know, kind of just sharing random thoughts. And then the other thing I would add is make sure that you always leave opportunity for a two-way conversation, right? So a lot of people on Twitter use it as kind of a bullhorn, right? You know, just kind of shouting out stuff, but ask questions of the audience, right? It's kind of a little silly when you only have 3 followers, but eventually you'll get there, you know, and if you keep on being a resource and developing this voice, the audience will come.
Any other questions? Anyone? Okay, so thank you all, panelists, and they will be around afterwards. We're going to hear from David. David? Oh, okay. I looked in the audience and he was no longer there. So David Tolkien is the Senior BD Manager for Funbox, and he's going to do a talk. We do these Darwin talks. They're 5 minutes long, and sometimes they're with slides and sometimes they're not. So this one is without slides, so we're just going to click back to the Evolve Law. Click. Click. There.
So my talk today was aimed at legal professionals, but it really applies to all businesses. I knew I was going to be doing this Darwin talk about 3 months ago. And so I did a bunch of research, and I wrote it all down. I put it in my desk drawer. I thought it was awesome. And about a week ago, I got it out. And I started reading over it. Last night, I brought it home, and you know, I was practicing, and I decided what I was going to do is read it to my kids. And for those of you that have kids, unfortunately for us, right, we have already finished the 167 activities that we planned for the summer, and school just got out like 3 days ago. So I was like, all right, I can kill 10 minutes with this, and it will be awesome. So I sat him down, I went through the whole thing, I read it. At the end of it, I looked at each one of them. And I looked at Luck. Luck is my 2-year-old, and he was sleeping. And so I was like, interesting data points. And I looked at Finn, who was my 6-year-old, and I said, what do you think? And he said, I'm hungry. And then I looked at Porter, and Porter's my 8-year-old, and I said, Porter, what do you think about what I said? And he looked at me, and he said, Dad, I had absolutely no idea what you were just talking about. It didn't make any sense at all. But what I do know is that what you said has nothing to do with Darwin. And I thought that was really interesting. So I looked at my wife and I was like, okay, like, first of all, maybe we don't have to spend $20,000 on private education, like he is learning something. And I looked back to Porter, I said, Porter, what is Darwin about? And he said, well, Darwin was a person who said a bunch of things that no one else thought was right. And he was someone that talked about how you can go from being a not so smart being to a smart being in the same way that you could become a monkey and turn into me. And I thought that was really interesting. So I gave him a piece of cake. And I took the thing that I had written before and I threw it in the trash can and I started over. And that's what I'm telling you now. So, I come from a company that works with all types of small businesses, and we focus around cash flow. And I always ask, what businesses have cash flow gaps? And no one ever raises their hand. Or they say, we don't have cash flow problems. It carries some sort of stigmata, nobody has cash flow problems. And then I start asking questions about cash flow, like, do you know how long it takes to get paid? So for the lawyers in the room, do you know how long it takes to get paid? For you to get paid? If I said last month, what was your DSO? Or for the last 6 months, what was your DSO? Or for the last year, from the time you issue an invoice to the time you get paid, how long does it take to get paid? And the reality for the hundreds of lawyers that I've spoken to is they don't really know those numbers. Or they say, well, it takes us about 7 days to get paid, and then you go run the report and it's 45 days. Or I talk to other lawyers in small businesses and they say we don't have a cash flow problem. And then I ask them questions like, do you ever have insufficient funds in your bank account? And they say yes. I say, do you ever put money into your business? Any personal money into your business? And they say yes. And I say, do you ever do that without telling your spouse? And they say, yeah. I say, do you ever put stuff on a credit card? And they say, yeah. I said, that means you have a cash flow problem. And half the time they get really pissed and they're like, who are you, you weird bearded tech guy, to tell me about my legal practice? You know absolutely nothing. And the other half of them say, tell me more. And that's the Darwin part of this, which is to take a good hard look at your cash flow, to see where your money's coming from, how long it's taking to you to get paid, and to really optimize that. Because the reality is, when I started doing a bunch of research this morning, the average law firm works about 87 days to get paid from the time they issue an invoice to the time the money goes in their bank account. That's a long time. In fact, that's one of the worst and longest periods for any small business to get paid. I mean, we work with businesses that do business with Walmart, and Walmart pays faster than 87 days. That's a long time to get paid. The average law firm has 73% or 76 billable hours at the end of the month that are not in invoices, just sitting there, work that's completed that's not getting billed. And the reality is that a lot of law firms go out of business every year. I'm not saying it's because of cash flow, but actually, yes, I am saying that. That's exactly what I'm saying. Most small businesses that go out of business do so because of cash flow. Not because they weren't a good attorney, not because they didn't have a good practice, not because they didn't have customers, because they didn't have a good cash flow. And they had cash flow gaps. And so I called an accountant of mine, a friend of mine that uses our product, which I'll pitch shamelessly in just a little bit for you. And I said, all she does is accounting for lawyers, small solo practitioners and 5 to 20 people in their firm. And I said, do you ever counsel on cash flow? And she said, yes. The problem with lawyers is that they run their businesses based on revenue, not based on profit margin. And so someone comes to me and they say, I have an accounting problem. I do my accounting myself, and I must have done something wrong. Things aren't reconciling right. I billed $40,000 last month, and I have $3,000 in my checking account. Can you take a look at my accounting and see where I made a mistake? And you know what I'm going to say now, right? Which is there was no mistake. She just doesn't know that when you run the numbers for her, it takes her 52 days from the time she completes her work to the time it gets paid. So part of what I'm talking about today is taking a good look at your cash flow and realizing, A, if you have a problem, and if you don't know how to understand if you have a problem, talk to another lawyer, talk to a friend, use an accounting platform, run a report, hire a consultant, but take a good hard look at cash flow. Because if your business goes out of business because you're just bad at it, I don't feel so horrible for you. But if you go out of business because you just don't understand your billing practices, that seems like a real loss for a good business. And the reality is that happens all the time. So what can you do to fix that problem? Well, the first thing is use an accounting platform. Use a practice management system like Clio or MyCase or one of these systems that does all that analysis for you. The other thing you can do, and I think this is really cool, is invoice follow-up. And I have spoken at many different conventions and all types of small businesses, and invoice follow-up is like one of the cheapest things that I think you can do and that nobody does. Anybody use invoice follow-up, automated invoice follow-up in their business? So what automated invoice follow-up is you sync your QuickBooks or your FreshBooks or your Clio or your MyCase with this system, and for about $15 a month, you designate these collection agents. So you can say, I want all of my new customers to be followed up this way. I want all of my customers that I got from a referral relationship to be followed up this way. And I want all of my regular customers to be followed up this way. And all you do in your accounting system, your practice management system, is say, this client gets followed up in this bucket, this client gets followed up in this bucket, and this client gets followed up in this bucket. And then all of a sudden, all you have to do is issue an invoice, and you know that on day 6, on day 12, day 15, and day 30, they're getting this set of emails. And it's super simple, and for $15 a month, you can't beat that kind of follow-up. The other things that I think are interesting, just a couple quick tips. Please and thank you. Mom was right. FreshBooks, which is an accounting platform, did a study that if you say please in your invoice, it's going to get paid faster than if you don't say please. Another one that I think is interesting is, and the way I've been saying it is, you need to make sure that Goldilocks would like your invoice. And what I mean by that is how much information you have. You don't want too much information, you don't want too little information. If you send out a $50,000 bill to me for services rendered, what do you think I'm going to do? I'm going to pick up the phone and say, what the hell is this? Right? Conversely, if you send me like a 6-page bill, then I'm going to nitpick it and we're going to have a conversation. The reality is that you want to put just enough information on there that you've demonstrated your services and what you're being billed for. And again, I realize this has like a pride issue, right? How dare should I have to justify my services to you when I've already completed them? But the reality is that if your customer picks up the phone and calls you and says, what is this line item? That's another week that goes by before you get your money. And there's actually a piece of software out there called, what is the name of it? Viewabill, which integrates with a legal practice management system, and it allows a portal for you and your clients to connect where they can see your hours and create complete transparency. I haven't used it, I can't endorse it, but in theory it seems really awesome. And then lastly, sort of a carrot or stick approach, right? Do you give an incentive on your invoices for being paid early? Do you give a penalty on your invoices for being paid late? And I'm not saying you have to implement all of these things, but certainly there's no reason that you can't try some of these next month and send 5 invoices out with a penalty and say 5 invoices out with a bonus and see how things return. And sort of bringing it all together, my main point is just that it seems, I doubt, when I talk to lawyers, and this is the #1 way that I tell they have cash flow problems, when they don't pay themselves. And it happens all the time. And I don't know if you guys have never paid yourself, if you're a small solo practitioner or a small law firm, I'm sure it's happened before. And I'm pretty sure that you guys didn't start working so that you could not pay yourselves. I don't know exactly why you did start working as a lawyer, but I'm pretty sure that the reason wasn't so that you could work your ass off and not give yourself a paycheck. And so my point is this, is take a good look at your current invoicing system, see where you can make some improvements, take a good look at yourself and realizing that if you have negative bank balances and you're not paying yourself, that it's time to take a look at those things, and then just make a couple tricks and twists and things that you can do to fix the problem. Because the reality is, as it keeps going on, it's not going to get better and better, and there's some little teeny things that you can do to really help things turn around. And that's my Darwin talk.
Well, thank you, David, and you did not do a shameless plug, so I want everyone to...
But now they're interested, so they'll come back.
Now you pique their interest. So, thank you all for coming. Please don't leave without drinking some more and eating some more of this food and visiting David and some of the other Evolve Law members that are here. And thank you again to Fox Wordy fun box, and always thank you to Davis Wright Tremaine for everything they've done for us as our founding law firm. So we will see you in the fall for the next Evolve Law event, which is in Atlanta.